Welcome to tonight's version of the David Shove Memorial Midstream Reading Series. Thank you for logging in. I expect to be well rewarded tonight. I'm your host, Mimi Jennings, and our tech host is Paul Mattis, for whom we thank profusely. Let's do that now with our hands. Thank you, Paul. We celebrate 4 poets tonight: Jim Lenfestey, Jude Nutter, Michael Kleber-Diggs, and Carolyn Williams-Noren. We used to gather and will again, inshallah, in the attic of Papa John Kolsted's Blue Moon, now Milkweed Coffee House, and then repair to Merlin's Rest, 3 blocks west afterwards. Tonight, instead, we gather virtually, Len and I, from our home in St. Paul, on land not freely ceded by its Dakota First Peoples. Housekeeping: the chat is already open and links are found there for writers, books, and other contact information. You can save the whole chat. You can save what you need by clicking on the file icon in the chat. On the Midstream website, you'll also find information about the series. It's monthly. And in a couple of days, a link to this and past recordings. After the readings, we'll have a short Q&A. I'm pleased to welcome you all. I will begin by reading 2 poems of mine. The first in the spirit of the late David Shove, who loved a good snarl. Side effects. Exploded limerick on prescription cancer drug prices that trigger my bank card security system. Enoxaprint's $400 a month, Movantic 2, which sucks. My 2 credit cards put up their guards, abundantly cautious laid locks. Like all common crooks on my name, closed the books. Fell to me to sort out the fix. Ashley mumbled, a juxtaposition that mucks up understanding, blocks easy handling. One had much clearer hooks, but a pox on his ears. He'd stuff socks in his ears when I needed someone who grokks my frequent reliance on oxycodone, my need for toxins, service, deluxe, credit. The crux, a system that cooks for me, plus rucksacks of coin as needed for pain, and several truckloads of luck. Second poem is a poem I overheard. It's in 2 voices, so I've tapped Len, my husband, thank you, Len, who will be the surgeon. And it's a run-on title.
I have 2 knives.
I'm surgically draped for a chemotherapy port placement. There's more. I lost. The me of me, anonymous beneath yards of single-use plastic.
This one's a puncture, like an all hard steel. Human skin is tough, and she doesn't leave me soaring.
Another voice.
I hold it vertical, like this, and tap, and lift. This one's curved, lighter, flexible, cuts easily through subcutaneous tissue.
Voice, instructive, steady as his hand. A scenting hum break through the fentanyl. I'm not meant to hear, supposed to be sedated, but I broke the fast, the rules, forgot, ate the banana rhubarb bread. I do get a fierce pain med. As I feel the odd tuck Tug, in this teaching hospital, I'm being taught.
The liver's a marvel, our only self-replicating organ. There's a story of a newborn with a liver like a raisin that regenerated from her mother's in one day.
He pauses his lesson to give the spot under my left collarbone another pull, for which the anesthetist ups the fentanyl.
It's all over. Ease catheter in here. No hurry. Greek myths.
In fact, now he's pausing often.
Could be liver cells think that they're in an embryo and growing. Here, I use this basic knot. Over the top once, again, under, across to lock, and back up.
The surgeon did not have an English accent. Our first invited reader is Jim Lenfestey. After a career in academia, marketing, and journalism, where he won several page ones for excellence for the Star Tribune, he has published 2 collections of personal essays, 7 collections of poems, has edited 3 poetry anthologies, and co-edited Robert Bly in This World, University of Minnesota Press. His Highboon memoir, Seeking the Cave, A Pilgrimage to Cold Mountain from Milkweed, was a Minnesota Book Award finalist. His 6th poetry collection, A Marriage Book, 50 Years of Poems from a Marriage, also Milkweed, was a finalist for 2 Midwest Book Awards. In 2020, he received the K. Sexton Award for contributions to the Minnesota literary community, the K. Sexton Award. For 15 years, he chaired Minnesota's, I'm distracted by that phone call, sorry. For 15 years, Jim chaired the Minneapolis Literary Witnesses Poetry Program and has led summer classes on Mackinac Island. He lives in Minneapolis with his wife, Susan. They have 4 children and 8 grandchildren. Jim Lenfestey.
Thank you, Mimi. It's a delight to be here with the proviso that my wife came back from 8 days of tramping around in the snow on her beloved Mackinac Island and brought back a cold for me. So if my voice disappears into the lowest registers below human hearing, we'll hang it up, but I'm delighted to be here. So here's the story about these poems, these body odes. So I've always been a fan of Pablo Neruda's Odes Elementales, the elemental odes. And one of the great joys of them is the form that he picked out. And they just spill down the page like a waterfall, leaping down and then bursting into a joyous splash at the bottom. I thought, what a great, brilliant form he came up with. Well, some years ago, I attended a lecture by an expert in Neruda, and guess what I found out? A revelation to me and maybe to you guys. So Neruda had a pal who owned a newspaper in Caracas, and he said, I'll publish your poems, but they have to fit in a newspaper column. Isn't that cool? So he created one of the great forms of our modern era because of that constraint, the long, narrow leaping. Well, that was on my mind when I had a bike wreck and tore the daylights out of my ankle. And I was sitting there with my foot up, and I found myself writing ode to the ankle. And then they spilled out, and I've got a couple dozen of these things, and they're good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know. I'm going to test a few of them out you now. This will take about 10 minutes, so I'll start this thing right now. So here's the first one as it came up, Ode to My Ankle. I have seen you flayed on the doctor's chart, complex as a mountain range, fields of vetch and poppies between whitewater tendons streaming over boulders of mobile bones. It was when the accident freed 2 tendons from their prison, a life sentence, that they frolicked over the ankle bone like snakes making love, slithering back and forth, shameless in spring sunlight. Until now, I stood on you like an emperor, oblivious to the mob below the castle wall, the 10 toes and 26 bones, everything multiplied, all of it holding me relentlessly erect, greater than any ape. Now, humbled by your rebellion, your angry stab of pain tearing you open to the world, swelling that distant region with soldiers living and dead, I stand lame and halt, wondering if the surgeon's guillotine awaits beyond the icy prison cell, that ragged stack under my lifted foot, the vicious boredom of the remaining family of the body. Oh, ankle, to think how long the emperor ignored your richness, your plenitude, to love now not one, but two, a matched pair like emerald earrings dripping from the lobe of each pendulous calf. The calf I raised since a boy with admiration, took to the state fair for judgment, to the football stadium, the swimming hole, exposed on moonlit summer nights, turned this way and that as if they magically floated me off the earth. While the holiest work was below, silent, where the ends of the tendons and raw meat meet, the levers of the mass of all of me, springing me forward and back into the light. So that's the first one, and then they tumbled from me in many, 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 many ways. Here's one. I think many of you have had a massage. Begin with the left shoulder, detached from the frame of the spine by a ball, and strained strings and strands. Scalpulus slip toward the chest like a sad friend longing for comfort. Onto the trapeze between that sad detached friend and the neck's upright needs and desires. Knotted to keep the half of us from falling apart. Onto the wound every human knows, the one in the geographic center of the back, the place one can never visit alone, only in the trusted hands of others. Once in the center of Africa, I swam alone at dawn, surrounded by a troop of baboons. The entire cycle of genus life watching me idly, grooming as I watched them idly. A theater of touch, a mantra of touch, a museum of touch. The back rises up in moaning memory of so much lost touch. For handfuls of dollars an hour, touch restored, though never enough, never ever enough in this long, lone human life. So, over to my ankle, massage, we got that one. You never know. So, ode to the bib I do not wear. I forgot my bib again. The big white one with the red lobster on it. And so my shirt, measled, the new one even my wife likes, measled now with pasta sauce, while sleeves run rivulets of salad dressing past clams clinging to my bulge like barnacles where noodles swim in ambient sauce. The daily feast decorates my chest with war medals, noodle splash, honey drip, nut cluster, burger blood, butter glob, jam splat, fork print, chest wounds, and purple hearts. If you, my friends, are unlucky, you wear a clean shirt and thrive in the desert beneath my plate. That perfect circle of emptiness, absent the rich red reach of exuberant love, uninhabited by the wild pleasures of overwhelming desire. Well, that's what do we got here. A couple more, I think. Let's see, come on. There we go. Come here. All right, phone kicks out. Okay, 4 minutes. Okay. Integument. That's skin. The system that covers your body. integument. What a marvelous wrapper, skin, snug even between toes. It shines in the sun and breathes like a forest, as if the hairs were fir trees and the skin a swamp with roots below water, allowing the whole earth to live in its breathing. And when slashed with a knife, it glues itself back together, leaving only a nick or a road and a story. Covering up every sin, every broken heart, every living love, every word unspoken, every song unwritten, every ugly thought. While perspiring with the work of the hunt and the gather of roots and the digging of graves and the raising of shrines and the fabrication of love. Whose idea was it anyway, to cover up this perfect covering, filled with functions and history and signals? This great plains of skin harboring thatches of fur like cottonwoods in the washes. Yet we look down on the coverings of our fingers as we type poems and memos and screeds which speak more about hangnails and headlines and lost loves, while the skin holds everything in. Final barrier between the messy ooze of us and the sharp rocks of the world, which, if they breach, it heals. On the final day of life on this globe, minds burned to cinders, clothes long shed into bins as the heat cooks night and day and the rains never come, except in bombs and bursts and floods. When the skin, overwhelmed, no longer respires inner heat because the outer heat and humidity is too humid to bear. Then it will lay down as the crumple of you, a last sign of your hollow shape and your epic sins. And then I'll do I think I know enough, 2 minutes, so I'll do the one which is the invocation. I love Pablo Neruda. We all love Pablo Neruda. And this is what started it, really. It's called Reading Pablo Neruda Odes at Dawn. Everything applies, of course, to today. I feel a kind of shame listening to this largeness, generous songs, one after another, cascading down the page, like recriminations that I did not do enough to praise, that I did not shout loud enough for the miners, the workers. Though I did shout for the fecund earth, but in squares of daily journalist prose collapsed into the dumps or ignited in small fires in the cabin. Shredded newsprint whose dark headlines recede daily into the past like footfalls of marching soldiers back into the earth, igniting nothing in the human heart to unbreak the branch before heaven, the fertile branch of plum and cherry and orange. My God, my God, how have we forsaken you for the corruption of impermanent ink, abandoned astonishment for the plow of extraction, tearing out your hair to redden the dawn of fire. And Neruda knew, who saw the infinite in grains of salt from the sea, in the sweat of mines, in the tomato, the bee. I am exhausted reading Neruda's odes, his generous lips and belly, his radiant open palms, pulling up his violent socks, shaking his salt, fingering the womanly curve of the spoon, the manly curve of the fork, the smooth neck of the carafe of wine. Nothing left to do but give. Nothing left to do but give and give again. Let me leave nothing on the plate of this life but crystals of salt. Thank you. Thank you. 10 minutes. And my voice held up. Thank you all, and delight. And take it away, Mimi.
Thank you so much, Jude. Okay, born in Yorkshire England, and raised in Germany, Jude Nutter's poems have appeared in numerous national and international journals. They have received over 40 awards and grants. She is the author of 4 full-length collections, Pictures of the Afterlife from Salmon Poetry in Ireland, the curator of Silence, University of Notre Dame, which I have to call Notre Dame, Press. I Wish I Had a Heart Like Yours, Walt Whitman, University of Notre Dame Press, and last year's Dead Reckoning, Salmon Poetry, Ireland, nominated for the current Minnesota Book Award in Poetry. Right. She lives in Minneapolis and divides her time between Minnesota and Dingle, Ireland, where she has a family home and whence she zooms in tonight. Jude Nutter.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jude.
You're working. Oh, thank God. Okay, so that works then, restarting the computer. Thanks, Caroline. So yeah, I'm zooming in from Dingle. It is currently 2 o'clock in the morning here, but I'm wide awake, so that's grand. I'm just going to read a couple of poems from the new book. I want to show everyone the cover because it's a fabulous cover. Irish artist, Claude McCusson. I'm going to read a couple of poems that have cave theme, not too much introduction to either of them. Just to say that the first one, The Lines of Chauvet, is about the Chauvet Cave, which is 15 to 18,000 years older than Lascaux. And most of the animals in there are predators. They're not hunt animals. So there's lions and cave bears and things like that. And I got so obsessed with just a panel. There's a huge panel of a pack of lions, and then there's a panel of just 2 lions, and that's just a line drawing of 2 lions, one inside the other, and they're so alive. It's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I got totally obsessed with this cave drawing, so I explored it in a poem. And it has an epigraph from the writer Lauren Isley. Above all, some of them, a mere handful in any generation perhaps, loved. They loved the animals about them, the song of the wind. On the surfaces of cave walls, the 3 dimensions of the outside world took animal shape and form. Here, not with the axe, not with the bow, man fumbled at the door of his true kingdom. The Lines of Chauvet. The lioness moves like thought, slick and continuous, into a world imagined ahead of itself. This great cat has been lost, even to herself, for the longest time. Who knows how an animal grieves? The children arrive in a rush, driven smoke or water, and fuse in a sudden crush against a long barrier of laminated glass. What are we to make of the fact that the animals painted with brushes of horsehair, with feathers and fingers in the caves of Chauvet are not primarily animals of the hunt, but predators rendered in umbers and ochres, in pigments bound with fat and urine and blood, in the blacks of Scots pine charcoal and burnt bone. There is tenderness and something faintly domestic inside a lion's mouth, in the way a tongue, even though it rasps skin from flesh, scours flesh from bone, drapes over the china white hooks of incisors like a length of pink linen. The lioness places the discs of her great paws down in huffs of dust. The scimitars of her claws she keeps well hidden. and the children have their hands spread flat against the glass. They seem so vulnerable, this fidgety line of little mammals with their backs to the world. In Chauvet, where they cannot be reached without effort, without torches, without the fire we bring with us, two lions in profile are walking side by side. The line of the male's back, from the muzzle through the shoulder and haunch to that bulb of fur at the tip of his tail, is one continuous gesture. The contour of the lioness nests so beautifully inside him. After the children have gone, all bounce and jostle, the lioness in her habitat moves behind a dense stippling of handprints, an exotic frieze of greasy, pale leaves. What are we to make of the fact that the entrance chamber of Chauvet contains a whole rock panel of hands, a panic of palms, the dark extremis of minds aware of themselves? That because of a kink in a little finger, there is one individual we can follow back into the cave, print by print, chamber by chamber. But to enter the earth and feel the call of the polished world slip from you, you must be invited. You must be in the company of the chosen, of one whose palm, placed down upon and read by a sensitized plate, breaks the seal and opens the way. Do not doubt that there are those who are willing to sever the hand from the body, willing to have their last act of freedom be imprisonment here in the calm black kernel beneath the green life of the busy hill, in the company of animals, of the story's first syllables, the negative presence of someone whose hand is held still in a flocked aura of ochre sprayed straight from the mouth, and the chill of 33,000 years between the present and the drawn line. The first world, which did not exist until it came up against the mind and was troubled into form. Because this is the beginning. This is the hand waiting upon, and holding within itself all possible futures. I say the hand was our very first symbol for that need felt inside the body, for something beyond the body. I say hands were our very first language. Just watch the way they flounder to become an extension of thought when we are speaking. Later, while shelves are restocked and money is counted, after the guard's final sweep and checks, after the gates are locked, the lioness will be coaxed with a shank of mutton or horse meat into her windowless pen, where her keepers enter the meager arena of her habitat, her small agon of concrete and heated rocks, to wipe down perches and ledges, to rake and spot clean the dirt. And someone with a trolley of cleaners and cloths and a long-handled mop will make their way steadily down the long barrier of glass, spraying and swiping it clean of every handprint, every blemish. The lions in Chauvet, all force and heft, all muscle and breath, walked a very long time in darkness, side by side, towards the moment of their discovery. In that gap between the black contour of the lion's back and the back of the lioness is a single sinuous line of ochre. There are theories that this was a line placed down as a guide to positioning, that this is proof of an artist's delight in the frisson of color. What are theories if not a means of testing our belief about the world? And if belief, like the body, is an animal, then flesh is the measure of all things. I say this line is evidence of love in its purest form. The heart teaching the hand what to put in, what to leave out. I say someone witnessed and understood the third animal these lions dragged into the world in the wake of their affection. Because these lions have been abstracted into life by the prayer of attention. Their bodies are touching as they walk. So a shorter poem, another cave poem, Yanwa, 19th of September, 2016. This is for my father, 18th of July, 1924 to 4th of September, 2014. Submerging below the field's thin rind of grass and dirt, following the inclined walkway into and through that liminal territory where heart's tongue and maidenhair and even the saturated flannels of mosses under pressure from ascending darkness surrender and return the limestone to itself. I have entered the earth without dying. I have walked into the open heart of the rock and arrived at the edge of the original entrance. In the light of my torch, a font of water so utterly untroubled, the mind at first perceives it as a continuance of air. But far back in the clearness, the tight black gullet of the flooded tunnel. Midweek, off season, I have the guide to myself, but she's flicking on spotlights and prattling on about flowstone and draperies, pool spas, cave pearls, so many words dropping blandly out of her mouth without echo, until she ceases her banter and snaps off the spotlights, and I hear, far off, the massive sweating of stone, evidence of rain let slowly go, and my eyes feel strangely opened beneath the roof of the lightless world. Later, when I walk out, nothing at all will be different, and everything will have changed. The clouds long ago moved over, and a blackbird's cleated call caught still on the air, although the bird itself will be hidden within a new neighborhood deep in the hedge. But for now, in silence, in a clot of torchlight, we are following the meandering path of concrete. We are laboring deeper, and the heart, believing it will find what it came for, is one step ahead of reason and ready to cross the threshold until, after weaving through the cathedral and the crystal chamber, after rounding a sudden blind corner beyond the pillar of the limestone Madonna, after coming so far through the hard skirts of the earth, we are brought up short by the strung barrier of a chain link fence. Above us, the long memory of the green world. Around us, the deep, unbound pieces of the earth for a while holding still. Beyond the net of the fence, where the bolus of the torch beam widens and bleeds out, darkness is a door standing ajar. And from this point on, the way untraveled, uncharted, unlit, every road, every path, every turn I take leads here. And yet, why am I here, Father, if I cannot enter? Thank you.
That was Jude Nutter. Thank you very much, Jude. Poet, essayist, and literary critic Michael Kleber-Diggs' debut poetry collection, Worldly Things, also nominated for a Minnesota Book Award, won the 2021 Max Ritvo Poetry Prize from Milkweed Editions. Yeah, celebrate that. Tracy K. Smith and John Freeman included his essay on the complex flavors of Black joy in their anthology, There's a Revolution Outside, My Love, Letters from a Crisis. Michael's writing has appeared or will appear in Great River Review, Waterstone Review, Poem a Day, Poetry Daily, Poetry Northwest, Potomac Review, Hunger Mountain, Memorious, and more. He's in a few anthologies as well. He's been a fellow with the Givens Foundation for African American Literature, winner of a Loft Poetry Mentorship, and poet laureate of Anoka County Libraries. He teaches with the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop, in Augsburg University's MFA program, and at St. Paul Conservatory for the Performing Arts. He's won nominations, Pushcart, and Best of the Net, and grants from Minnesota State Arts Board, the Jerome Foundation, and the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council. Michael Kleber-Diggs.
Thanks, Mimi. Dispatch from Middle America for Murray Middle School. The Karen are here and the Hmong. Ethiopians, Eritreans, and the Somali are here. They are here from Europe, Mexico, and Canada. Americans are here, first generation and seventh generation, and indigenous. Black and white, Asian, every race and ethnicity, they are all here. Christians and Jews, Muslims and Hindus, Buddhists and UUs and atheists, so many faiths are here. A single Rastafarian is here. He's white. His colorful clothes always adorned with the leaf of his sacred herb. He walks among girls in abaya or chador, hijab, dupatta, the comically tall and the very short, the wealthy and the poor, children of the hyper-educated, children of the semi-literate, broken children, and blessed children, here. Gay boys are here. Lesbians and bisexuals, trans and queer kids are here. They are all here, each of them and all of them, here with their dreams and desires, their dramas and disturbances. Some flowers blossoming in radiant display, some seeds wanting water and fertile soil. But here, they laugh and they cry. Some hit each other, some fuck each other, some try smoking or drinking or pills or love. But they all bounce about here for your consideration, perpetually in flux at a single middle school in St. Paul in Minnesota in the upper Midwest of America. Half asleep and completely alive with their phones and their earbuds, their affectations and their urgency, all as if to say, look at me. Please don't look at me. Help me. Please leave me alone. Go away, please. Never leave me. Here, please. Here. This is a love letter to my neighbors called Structural Fatigue. A band I love released another album. I watched them on YouTube while walking my dog. My neighbor Bob appears ashen in the second floor window, framed in waning yellow light. Just home from work, I walk our golden doodle in darkness. Streetlights make skinny shadows of us. In the video, the band looks haggard, older, strung out maybe. They mock earlier versions of themselves. Bob and I had a competition for best shovel and best mow, except he had no idea we were competing. Buds in, volume up, senses down. These are safe streets, but I can't see much or hear outside of the song. The boys in the band are half my age. They live and describe a zeitgeist different than mine. Months ago, Bob, already frail, at least an octogenarian, suddenly stopped mowing or shoveling. He vanished. Puppy and I reach a dark house where a shy woman lives with a chatty man. Their Pomeranian is barkless and old. The band has an esoteric name unrelated to anything really. 3 words, 1 syllable, 2. Barb took over. She's tiny, lovely, married to Bob. Now she shovels and mows and plucks Creeping Charlie by hand. My puppy is 8 months and chaos. The Pomeranian sits in an unlit yard, doesn't know we're coming till we're already there. The band sings about sex and alcohol and mortality. Their song includes one of those direct address meta moments. I hadn't seen Bob in many months when he appeared small in his window, staring at nothing, petrified. In my ear then, the band asked, "Don't you realize our bodies could fall apart at any second?" Here's the deal. Structural fatigue eventually causes breakdowns. I am 50 and chaos. My whole body groans. Never have I ever shoveled or mowed better than Bob or Barb. Doesn't matter anyway. Very little does. Watching Bob in his window, I notice for the first time the complex time signatures. All the instruments play a different meter. I imagine myself decades hence, which is selfish, I know, but I am somewhere inside the middle of my life and still preoccupied with sex, alcohol, and mortality. Only the ratios have changed. I write to you 500 days into a desperate reign. Alchemy is oversubscribed. People line up for more. I'm wide-eyed and tired, but last night I had a dream, and in the dream, I was asleep. I needed more rest. I tried to wake in the dream without waking myself up in real life. It can't be done. We arrive to a lightless place. Our shadows disappear but remain. The song is about the song, and I can't deny I am innervated. Our king is mad. Our king is grim, dim, dimming. Our king is mean. The boys in the band convert fragility to urgency. They want to get laid. Bob waits to stop waiting, whitened down to gray, to blue, quiet as an empty house, a sleepy reverie. And I know he has forgotten me. At last, I answer them and him, no one, everyone. I do. I say it out loud. I do. I do. Thank you so much for having me. Just, I'll share more later. My daughter asked me if I would write a poem for her a couple nights ago. I got a text message, then a phone call, and she had an assignment due. And she wanted me to write a poem that focused on hands. And I was kind of going to read it. And then I thought, no, I'm not going to read it. And then I was listening to Jude's poem and thinking about hands. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. We're just friends hanging out anyway. So this is just by way of background, my daughter's in school and she's taking a video art class and she was making a short film that has hands in it a lot. And she wanted me to write a poem. And she also had received a couple of difficult messages from friends and wanted to reflect on that a little bit in the piece that she was making and invited me to do the same in the poem. This is called Toward Light to Silence for EKD. When I woke, my hands ran cold. The bones know. Carpals, metacarpals, phalanges. My nails seem pale to me, a light shale underneath. Fingertips as antenna, these hands as sure and certain messengers. Myself as recipient, as agent, as a responder first. I place my palms against my face, still flush, a bit wet yet. Yesterday, I was transgressed. A text, unexpected, then another. Pressure, fissure, fracture, fidget, stress. One more unnecessary test. Yesterday, these hands held bars and pans, pens and pills, bills and sins, a wooden spoon and bottled brew. When my phone chimed twice, I picked up, smiling when I saw you had a message for me. The word of the day was apricity, the warmth of sun in winter, like ice and hot coffee, but backwards. The forecast calls for cold today. I stay right where I am, here, to notice how my hands begin to warm as my head begins to cool. I find myself first curling my fingers in to make of them a bulb, then stretching them out like fronds, reaching finally toward light to silence the alarm before it can tell me what I already know. Thank you. I have one more poem tonight, and just Mimi, it's so good to see you. I've been thinking about you a lot and checking in with you, and it's just good to see you and hear your voice and your poems. And hello to you as well, Len. Jim, this is my first time hearing you read, and oh, what a delight. I just had to write down the messy ooze of us and the sharp rocks of the world. Oh, that's so good. And I have to say to Jude, so first of all, I cannot remember the last time I was up at 2 a.m. It had to be that I was in California at midnight, because or up to make water or deal with a barking dog. I can't think of another time. So it means so much to me that you're here. I love your work so much. And the best book of poetry I read last year was Dead Reckoning. If you have not read it, I cannot recommend it to you highly enough. It is beautiful and smart and keenly observed and expertly crafted and just spectacular. It was so wonderful to see you tonight and to hear you read. And last, I'm so excited, and there's a little funny joke here that we all get to open for Carolyn, who's a good friend of mine, and we're on a poetry team together. So she means a lot to me as a person and as a poet. So I'm excited to hear you as well. I'll close with a poem called Postcard to Sean. It's for the poet Sean Hill, who's a friend of mine and a mentor and a great teacher and a beautiful person. He's a birder. He's really big on research for his poems. We both like bourbon and we're dads. Postcard to Sean, or Fraternity or Chance, for example. I might write, I thought of you the other day on a trail through woods, due south of the Minnesota River, just west of the capital. So quiet there, I heard critters scurry along the path, and leaves and twigs rustle and snap. My own feet falling while I puzzled my way through some particular poem part, wanting to know more about prayer. A specific Catholic prayer I used to recite. Sean, a bird, tweeted or trilled a morning song, quite short, quite grand. It got me wondering what creature calls with notes above the rattle, which led me back to you, who might know, or research until you did. You out west in Fairbanks, north of me yet, still sleeping, or up with your baby boy as once I was up with my baby girl. Or I might write to fatherhood instead, or happenstance. Because postcards to people are postcards to ideas, to ideals, to abstractions, they're psalms, quite short. Anyway, I wanted to reach out to you and these other things to say, brother, I looked it up. I'm pretty sure it was an indigo bunting. Thank you.
Michael Kleber-Diggs. I'm going to interrupt here and tell you that Sean Hill is not just everything that Michael said he is, but he is also the director of the Minnesota Northwoods Writers Conference, registration for which opens it's already open, I think. But it is the finest Minnesota poetry experience ever. I've been going 8 years. I'm going to miss this year. I will be back. Highly recommended. Okay, Carolyn, we're coming to number 4. I've been looking forward to this night for so long, and here we are. Carolyn Williams-Noren writes poems and lyric essays and works as a freelance writer and editor in Minneapolis. Her poetry has been published in journals such as Salamander, Gigantic Sequence, love that name, Sugar House Review, Agni, Tinderbox, Spoon River Poetry Review, Waterstone Review, and has received a Best of the Net nomination, while her lyric essay, Comfort on the Death of an Ancient Oak, was listed a notable essay by Best American Essays. Her first poetry, why am I getting lost in my papers? Chapbook, Small Like a Tooth, Dancing Girl Press, focuses on darker sides of motherhood. Her most recent, is it FLIGHTS, those are separated letters, is out from Ethel Zine and Press. She is the recipient of a McKnight Artist Fellowship in Poetry, an Artist Initiative grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board, and a Loft Mentor Series award. Recent-ish prose can be found online at Hobart and Tahoma Literary Review, and 2 new poems are at Up the Staircase Quarterly. Carolyn Williams-Noren.
Thank you. Mimi, thank you for inviting me to read to this beautiful group of readers and writers, and to read with these amazing writers. Jim, it's great to get to meet you, at least through the screen, and Michael and Jude are 2 poets I've known and admired for a long time and learned a lot from, so super cool to be part of this. I am not a photographer and definitely not a sculptor, but I decided that I'm going to try the experiment of sharing images that go along with the piece that I want to share with you tonight. And naturally, I don't see the thing that I want to share. Oh, let's try this. You may see my tax spreadsheet instead. Can you see the slide? Nod your head if you can see it. Otherwise, we'll give up. You can see it. Okay, good.
Let me see it, but it's part of the screen, Carolyn.
Oh, it's little. Okay,
It's half the screen. It's getting bigger now. Yeah.
Thank you for telling me. Does that seem respectable? Okay. Thanks for your patience and experiments. This is probably an essay. It could be a poem with really long words. I mean, really long lines. The words hopefully are just normal length. We'll see. So cooking dinner and other acts of creation. There we go. One evening several years ago in summer, I sat on the porch between my daughters reading, sitting still so my friend Stacy could paint our portrait. I was reading over and over Frank Bidart's poem, Advice to the Players. The line, without clarity about what we make and the choices that underlie it, the need to make is a curse, misfortune. The line, being is making. The winter before that, my daughter Iris and I made a 3-foot-tall papier-mâché sculpture of a woman weaving. It started with a school assignment. Her 4th grade teacher asked her to make a replica of an artifact from an ancient Mayan civilization. She was to involve her family. Iris chose from a library book a photo of a figurine from Haiena Island, a clay sculpture. The woman is seated, weaving on a backstrap loom. At the head of the loom, watching her, a small bird. Iris told me something about this bird. It always shows up in the weaver figurines and nobody knows why. Maybe it's because birds weave too, turning grasses and twigs or even a woman's discarded scraps of string into nests. Maybe it's about watching creation. First, we opened the cupboard under the kitchen sink and pulled out the recycling bin. In the corner of the kitchen, we heaped all the materials we might use. When I'm cooking dinner for myself and my family, I'm not just myself cooking. There's no way to do it without sensing my mother cooking, telling herself it was the right and best thing she could do as a mother. My grandmother cooking, knowing it was her duty, considering no other options. My great-grandmother, I imagine, cooking like breathing, cooking dinner without the sense that anyone else in the house ever would or could. When you go to cook dinner, you hope someone, you or someone else, has cooked the night before and before that. You hope for their leftovers, their scraps, half an onion in the crisper, some cut up vegetables to throw into a soup, a cold cut of meat to slice thinly and lay on top of noodles. It's nice if there's a whole unopened bunch of green onions, its rubber band and cellophane still in place. But it's better if there's one scallion afloat in the crisper drawer, some of its leaves yellowed, but its white layers and inches of green still crisp. It's better because it's no more than you need. If you need more than there is, it's best to change your plan so the scallion becomes precisely right. Trim, rinse, slice. It's another chef's remnant and you've used it, completed what yesterday's cook started, accepted the gift with gratitude. If yesterday's chef was you, all the better. Some kinds of work repeat and repeat, but success is supposed to be found elsewhere, in far-reaching decisions, in inventions, in solutions, in making what no other person could make. Artists, too, including writers, are supposed to be doing something all our own. When I think like that, I stop writing. I wrote the first draft of this on an island where a white-throated sparrow called its long 3-note song on every out-breath all week. Elizabeth Bishop wrote about this little bird's song: repeat, repeat, revise, revise, revise. As with cooking, when I write, I hope someone else has been in the kitchen recently. I hope the kitchen hasn't been empty for long. Recently has a longer chronological reach when it comes to art. In fact, replace recently with ever before. Choose one thing to imitate. The sculpture my daughter chose from a book at school. A woman weaving on a backstrap loom. A woman making something. We made her out of a cardboard box that a fan came in, a lot of toilet paper tubes and wrapping paper tubes, a pasta box, a cereal box, crumpled paper, a paste made of flour and water, an oatmeal box, strips of newsprint, padded mailing envelopes, 2 balloons, and gray paint bought at the art store. Our sculpture was much larger than the clay figurine. She had her quirks, but she had the same shape, a woman cross-legged, straight-backed, her arms at work, her face calm, concentrating, her work stretched in front of her, a round-bodied bird perched on the bar of her loom, watching. The bird's tail a little fan. Who made the sculpture Iris found in her book? Would that person, seeing our weaver, recognize the shape? Was that sculptor imitating yet an earlier artist? Or is the clay figure only a copy of the woman herself, the woman weaving, the original mover, the one who invented her own form? Nobody is free from repetition. Even caring for the body is over and over the same. Drawing a comb or one's fingers through one's hair, bringing water with hands or with cloth to one's face, and soap, avoiding the eyes, reaching the spaces between nose and mouth, between nose and cheeks. This is passed down to us, just like crimping the edge of a pie crust with thumb and fingers, a job I watched my grandmother do, my mother, my aunts. A movement I make too, feeling while I do it that my hands aren't mine at all, but all of those women's. Looking at the weaver we have just finished, there is pleasure and a kind of recognition of a being. I find myself staring at her painted papier-mâché face the way I stared at my own newborn children's faces. She has a sturdiness of posture that is familiar. When we finish painting the final layer, the feeling of stepping back and looking is so distinctive. Did the Maya sculptor experience these same contours of sensation? If a moment of feeling is the flash of a flare between a billion neurons in a long, one-of-a-kind serpent of brain action, maybe the Maya maker and Iris and I carried for a moment a few identical curves. It's a kind of a likeness. Maybe it's not even in the brain. Maybe it's the shape the maker's hand takes after the work of smoothing a certain curve of face, the angle at which the maker is drawn to look at the work. Maybe the comb through the hair is just as sublime. Stacy paints us for an hour, and then she says, "I'm getting tired. I'll scrape down and try again tomorrow." What she means is she takes a triangular metal putty knife to that hour's work, removing almost all of the paint she's laid down. This takes away the finer details of what she's done, but it leaves on the paper an outline of the shapes, a container for the memories of the finer strokes. The next evening, she'll start again with that shadow as a guide. The parts she felt she did well the first time, she'll be able to repeat easily. Where she was unsatisfied on the first try, she can paint differently now. Repeat, repeat, revise, revise, revise. Many nights, dinner may be the same. Twice a week in winter, there may be Brussels sprouts cut in half and sauteed over medium-high heat with butter and salt. They may be the same golden brown color each time. Some days I will have used the tablespoon nub of butter left over from the morning's pancakes. Some days I'll have opened a new stick and left the rest, 7 unused tablespoons, with one wrapper end open in the fridge door for a future chef's satisfaction. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Leaving us wanting more, are you? Lovely, lovely. And I think a good summary. Didn't you see your hands in there? And didn't you see newsprint? Jim, did you hear your newsprint getting used? It was a lovely, summary. So I want to thank all four of you. My gosh, what a lovely night. I want our audience to, first of all, just show our appreciation. Let's just unmute and do this and then mute again because I've got some announcements. So, yay.
Yeah.
Right. Hello. Thank you. Yay, 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 yay. Okay. Right. Now, recall the link to the writer's works and how to buy their books are in the chat. And also information about the monthly series, the Midstream Readers series, is to be found on the Midstream website, which is how you got here. The second Thursday in April, the 14th, Richard Turrell will welcome poets Philip S. Bryant, Williams-Noren, Mary Jo Thompson, and Connie Wannock. It will be Richard's last time he swears. I was going to say it in French. Il jure that he will not again go virtual. So we're looking for someplace, hopefully, to meet accessibly and in person. So our tonight's four poets, we are so grateful for your creative work and sharing. Paul Mattis, Zoom host, again, many thanks, many thanks. Just stalwart and steady. I'm Mimi Jennings, one of four who organize these readings. Thank you, dear audience, for your attention.